There is an old Buddhist witticism about a businessman, a farmer, and a horse. One day, a farmer is walking slowly along a dirt road. In the distance, he sees a businessman frantically riding a horse toward him. As the farmer continues down the path, the businessman gets closer and closer. As the two pass one another on the road, the farmer curiously asks, "Hey, where are you headed so fast?" The businessman, holding on to the horse for dear life, looks back over his shoulder and responds, "I don't know. Ask the horse." I've been reflecting on that story this week as I've observed various conversations and meetings filled with intelligent people trying to accomplish audacious organizational AI transformation efforts. But before we go any further, let me take a minute to introduce myself if you are new here. My name is Chris Schmelzer, and I serve leaders who recognize the need and understand that the old models of leading and working are no longer keeping up with the pace of change. Every week, I track the subtle signals that a massive reset is coming for what we refer to as white collar work, and share thoughts on how to lead yourself and your organization through the age of accelerating change. If you find any value in this video, like it, share your comments below, and subscribe. For some reason this week, I keep thinking about the horse. There is an enormous amount of pressure right now for organizations to figure out AI. Boards have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. Executive teams are managed and rewarded on their ability to execute a business that is profitable and offers returns to shareholders. AI promises too much potential economic gain to simply sit back and wait. The incentives are locked in, and I don't see the pressure letting up anytime soon. Every week, it seems like there is a new AI tool, a new AI capability, or a new vendor promising to help organizations move faster. This tool promises to help you communicate faster. Another promises to clean up your data faster. A different one promises to more efficiently connect your agents to your models, to your data. In the eyes of decision makers measured on their ability to execute the plan, many of those promises understandably look like dollar signs. I am not saying that with any cynicism. I think many of these products and services will help. I think organizations will become more productive because of them. I think many of the promises being made about the economic potential of AI will eventually prove to be true. But I've started wondering if there is something underneath all of this that another tool designed to accelerate our transformation won't necessarily solve. When we feel like we aren't moving fast enough, our natural response seems to add more acceleration. More tools, more meetings, more messages, more dashboards, more activity, faster responses, faster decisions. The assumption operating underneath all of it is that speed is the answer. But what if, at least in some places, speed is actually becoming part of the problem? This isn't entirely a new problem. When BlackBerry introduced push email in the late 1990s, it wasn't trying to reshape human behavior. It was solving a business problem. Executives wanted faster access to information. Traders wanted real-time updates. Lawyers and consultants wanted to stay connected outside the office. What made BlackBerry different wasn't simply that it put email on a phone. Others had tried that. What made it different was that email came to you instantly, continuously, with a notification telling you something was waiting. As described in Losing the Signal, this was the breakthrough. Work no longer waited for you to return to it, it followed you. I've been thinking about how significant that seemingly small shift actually was. The day email followed us out of the office and into the rest of our lives, something fundamental changed in the human experience of work. With that small productivity tool, boundaries began to dissolve. Somewhere along the way, I think the meaning of urgency began to change with them. We became accustomed to the idea that because something could reach us immediately, it somehow deserved an immediate response. Over time, that behavior became so normal that most of us probably don't even notice it anymore. You can see it in almost any meeting. Someone is talking while another person is responding to a Slack or Teams message. Someone else is monitoring their inbox for whatever request might come next. Another person is half listening while searching for a file they suddenly believe everyone needs to see. I do it too, and I suspect I'm hardly alone. We've become remarkably good at convincing ourselves that we're actually participating in a conversation while simultaneously doing three other things. But I wonder what all of that speed is actually costing us. I see this play out in another way with leadership teams. Someone high in the organization needs information, so they send a quick email or message to someone below them. The person receiving the message sees who it came from and immediately drops whatever they are doing. They might be sitting in an important meeting. They might be in the middle of a completely different piece of work. It often doesn't matter. A story immediately begins forming in their head. They need an answer. I need to get it to them, and I probably need to get it to them right now. So they respond. The executive receives the response and has another question. They send it back. The other person responds again, serve, return serve, volley, volley. Growing up in a corporate environment, getting things done, and executing have traditionally been rewarded. There is nothing inherently wrong with that. But I find myself wondering how much of what we call execution is actually just volleying something back over the net because we've unconsciously decided that everything requires an immediate response. At what point does all of that back and forth stop being progress? What might have happened if the person had stayed present in the meeting, read the email later when they could give it their full attention, reflected on what was actually being asked, and then responded thoughtfully? Maybe the answer would have taken longer, but the conversation, the back and forth, would have taken less time. That distinction feels increasingly important to me. Speed and urgency are going to remain priorities. I don't think the answer is for organizations to simply slow everything down. That would be equally misguided. The challenge is learning to distinguish between what actually needs speed and what requires thoughtfulness. If our sense of urgency has become distorted, how will we know when we actually need to move fast and when we need to slow down? I think there is another place this shows up that is even harder to notice. It happens in the way we listen. When someone is talking in a meeting, are you listening to respond or are you listening to understand? The distinction sounds subtle, but I don't think it is. When I'm listening to respond, part of my attention is already somewhere else. I'm constructing my argument. I'm preparing my answer. I'm looking for the flaw in what someone else is saying. I'm waiting for the opening where I can jump back into the conversation and prove my point. There is a speed to that kind of listening. Listening to understand requires something different. It requires enough patience to stay with someone else's point of view before deciding what I think about it. That becomes particularly important during transformation because we are constantly using words and phrases that appear to have shared meaning. Strategy, transformation, adoption, governance, readiness, AI. Everyone around the table nods, so we assume we're talking about the same thing. But often we aren't. Each of us is interpreting those words through our own experiences, assumptions, incentives, and understanding of the world. If we're moving too quickly to stop and notice those differences, we can leave a meeting believing we have alignment when all we've really done is talk past one another. The faster information moves, the more consequential this seems to become. This is what I find myself thinking about as AI continues to accelerate. AI is making it possible for information to be created, analyzed, distributed, and acted upon faster than ever before. That will create enormous opportunities for organizations, but businesses are still made up of people, and shared understanding doesn't necessarily move at the same speed as information. In fact, I wonder if our relentless effort to speed everything up is sometimes making shared understanding harder to create. The pace of change increases, so we believe we need to multitask more. Our attention fragments across all our communication channels, so we listen less carefully. Because we're listening less carefully, we make more assumptions. Those assumptions create confusion, which generates more emails, meetings, messages, escalations, and requests for clarification. Then, because there is now even more coming at us, we feel the need to move even faster, which brings me back to the horse. Maybe many of us are already riding it. The strange part is that when you're the person on the horse, it can be hard to recognize how frantically you're riding it, especially when everyone around you appears to be doing the same. Over time, this is simply what productivity starts to feel like. This is what responsiveness looks like. This is what we have come to associate with corporate performance. That is what makes this so difficult to see. So here is an experiment I've been trying myself, and one I would challenge you to try over the next week. Find a meeting where you are participating but aren't responsible for leading it, and see if you can sit through the entire meeting without checking your email, your phone, your Slack messages, or whatever else is competing for your attention. Just sit in the meeting, be there. Instead of focusing on getting your point across, see if you can observe what is actually happening in the discussion. See if you can hear where people are talking past one another, but mistaking it for shared understanding. Notice when participants disappear into their inboxes, their phones, or their smartwatches, and then reappear a few minutes later. Pay attention to how quickly the conversation gravitates toward the loudest or most senior voice in the room. See if you can become aware of what normally goes unnoticed. I suspect this kind of awareness is going to become increasingly important as the pressure around AI transformation continues to mount. The pressure isn't going away. Maybe that is the real challenge for teams and individuals, becoming more aware of what actually needs speed and what requires thoughtfulness. The horse isn't going to stop running. In fact, it will probably continue to get faster. And the challenge is not to actually slow the horse down or get off the horse. The challenge is developing enough awareness to recognize when we are actually directing it and when we're simply holding on. We may know the general direction we're trying to travel. We may all agree that we're heading north, but the exact destination is becoming harder to define, especially as the pressure to get there faster and faster continues to increase. That feels like a dangerous moment to confuse activity with progress. So this week, maybe try becoming the farmer for a moment. Step outside the urgency long enough to observe it, watch the horse go by, and have the courage to ask yourself or someone around you, where are we going so fast?
If you want to explore how to lead yourself and your organization through the age of accelerating change, my new book, The Missing Link, offers a new lens. It shows why most change efforts stall and how human capacity, not just strategy, determines success. Once you see it, you'll lead change very differently. You can access it for free right now. Link is below the video.